And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I'm your host, Josh G. And today I'm joined by one of the hosts of the Middle Class Film Class podcast. Please welcome Pete to the show.
How's it going? How you doing, Josh and listeners?
I can't complain. So why don't you tell everyone about your podcast about it?
Oh, okay. So our podcast is called Middle Class Film Class. It's hosted by myself, Joseph, and Tyler. The three of us were close friends. We've been talking about movies on the show for a little over 2 years now, and we release twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Monday episode is news and review, news and like we call it gab and chatter, and we just talk about weekly movie news. And then at the end of the episode, all three of us give streaming recommendations for free streaming, whatever. If you have a service, for Showtime app, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, and then the second half of the week, we do a deep dive review chosen at random by the Wheel of Destiny. And it's basically just a spinning wheel. The three of us have some picks on there, and we have some fan picks on there. So it's a good time. It's pretty funny. We record it live like it's a radio show, and we do a lot of listener interaction. So if you have an urge to get on air, put your movie on the fan list, and if it gets picked, we usually will offer to call the guest and have them, or call the listener and have them on the show, talk about their movie for a little bit, and we read listener emails on air. It's a good time. It's really fun.
Oh, awesome. Sounds awesome. So after you finish this episode, everybody go check them out.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's dive into your movie, going back to 2014, and this is Whiplash.
Yes, Whiplash. I love it. This actually just recently has been dethroned my favorite movie. For the longest time, I will classify There Will Be Blood as my favorite movie, which I will always love. It's so heart-wrenching. But Whiplash, I've booted off There Will Be Blood. Paul Thomas Anderson can take a hike, and now it's time for Whiplash. I love it.
All right. So when did you first see Whiplash?
I didn't see it in theaters. It's probably like, it probably had to have been a couple years later. So probably like 2017 or so. Wasn't really on my radar. I didn't really know like a whole lot about Damien Chazelle, and I don't think a whole lot of people did back then. But I heard it talked about on a couple of different film podcasts and rave reviews from some people, and it sounded like up my alley. I really like good jazz music, and if you don't know what Whiplash is, it's a story of a freshman year, essentially university student going to a music conservatory, the Schaefer Music Conservatory, and he's wants to be a jazz drummer, and he's played by Miles Teller, playing Andrew Neiman, the character, and his abusive Bobby Knight-like music teacher, jazz teacher, is played by J.K. Simmons. And the thing that struck me was, for one, I'd never known J.K. Simmons as that type of role before, and he's yoked. He's bulging with old man muscles, veiny and vascular, and the whole movie is like injected throughout. It's part of the story. This fantastic soundtrack. So a mediocre movie can be made much better by a great soundtrack or great sound quality, and this is already a great movie with a fantastic soundtrack and amazing sound quality, and it's part of the story, and it checked every box for me. So
All right. So do you have any kind of background in music?
yeah, I played all the way through from seventh, I guess it was like fifth grade, all the way till I graduated high school. Played trombone, so I played in a number of jazz bands, jazz ensembles, orchestras, things like that, and I really do love jazz music, and I think it gets kind of a bad rap just because some people just think jazz is scatting. It's just like improv, and that is a big part of certain parts of jazz, but classic big band stuff, which is, all Whiplash is the name of a song. It's a classic jazz song, big band standard. And but yeah, I played it before. I play guitar now. I couldn't tell you what happened to my trombone. I've moved so many times. It's not a small thing to lose, but somehow I lost it.
Yeah, that's part of why I stayed away from it for a while, because I'm not into music like that, and I didn't
Mhm.
think I would connect to it. But I still got pulled into just the story by itself, and like you say, even the music's great. So,
How did you just recently watch it for the first time?
no, it might have been around the same time as you, because what it was I have a friend who is into music, and he
Mm.
told me I should watch it, and we started working together right when it came out, actually. So it might have been 2016, 2017. It was around that same
Nice,
time
nice,
frame. Ugh.
cool.
So what is it about this? What is it that made it dethrone There Will Be Blood? Like, what is it that put it over that hump?
I think for one, I think I was just tired of talking about Daniel Day-Lewis. I have this strange bromance for him. That's he's one of these actors that it's almost like he can do no wrong in my eyes. And um, but I mean, it's really hard. It's almost like asking someone what your favorite song is. It's a really hard thing to say. But time and time again, when I don't know what to watch, and it's mid-afternoon or early in the morning and my girlfriend's not there because she sleeps in, I'm usually up quite a bit before her, and I cannot listen to this or watch this movie without the volume all the way up. So I don't usually watch it early in the morning if she's asleep, because she won't be asleep for very long. But I find myself just sticking Whiplash on, and I can literally walk around the house and do chores while it's playing because the soundtrack's so good. You could sit down and have a dedicated rewatch, like, and every time the climax hits, I get choked up and emotional every time. I'm even thinking about it sometimes.
Okay. Well, yeah. Got that deep personal connection. So I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, you talked about what it was about. So we'll move on to the next part.
Mhm.
And I know this is something that you wouldn't want to see, but where would you take a sequel if it happened?
Okay. So the only sequel that I could possibly see happening would be like 40 years down the road. And Fletcher, who's J.K. Simmons' character, is an old man. He's like in a rest home. And Andrew's now he's now the teacher. And he's chasing his own white whale, which would be his role in the first one. Um, it would essentially, you would see the fruits of Fletcher's labor. And I have the movie's so complicated because you don't you don't like Fletcher. You don't like J.K. Simmons' character. The teacher is physically abusive, 100% mentally abusive, and not only just to Neiman, but also to the other people in the band. And he says he's doing this as a reason to um, coax greatness out of him, right? And if that's true, why is he doing it to everybody? You know, every single person in that band is getting completely abused mentally, and there is a very real like thought at the end where they're having like a heart to heart, they're having a conversation, and he says, you know, Charlie Parker wouldn't be Charlie Parker unless, you know, whoever threw the symbol at his head. And, you know, would the greatest great will never be dissuaded. That's what makes them great. So I'm only pushing them to make them better. And if you push the person away and they go away, they were never destined to be one of the greats. So essentially he's almost like saying, I'm going to ruin a whole generation of people to find the one great one. But is that a good thing ultimately, or is that a bad thing? Would we ever have, you know, a Tiger Woods if his dad hadn't rode him, you know, like a rented mule from age 5 on, you know, or does it matter that we don't have a Tiger Woods? You know,
Right.
ultimately, is that a net negative for the world? So there's a really interesting idea there. And there's one single line that's summed up at the very end that he says, the two most dangerous words are in the English language are good job. And that sums up Fletcher's teaching style and motivation style. He will not tell you you're doing a good job. He'll tell you you're a piece of shit,
Yeah.
and you can only do better. You've never done good enough, and you can only do better. So I want to see the artist's interpretation, Chazelle's interpretation of Neiman as an adult now doing that to a younger generation. And you don't have the backstory of Fletcher, but you do have the backstory of Neiman. So if he's the teacher, does he pull back in certain situations? You know, there's a lot of nuance that I think that could be done there. Or you could go in a completely different direction. Like, have you seen The Perfection?
Yes.
Okay. So you could go in a completely different direction, Whiplash to Electric Boogaloo, and it could be like the perfection where it becomes like a revenge piece.
Right.
And Neiman is ties up Fletcher somewhere down the road, and his life is in a shambles, and he does an audition type thing to him.
Yeah. Now that movie had a lot of twists and turns in it.
Oh, The Perfection or Audition?
The Perfection.
I guess they both did. Now that I think about it.
Well, yeah, you're right. I've seen Audition as well, and yes,
that's a tough one. But please don't do a sequel ever. It's a perfect piece. It's done.
Yeah, completely agreed. So this next one, it's always hard with these movies that aren't even that old, right?
Yeah.
To talk about the remake territory, because obviously it's not like you'd want to take any of these actors out and put someone else in their role.
Mm-hmm. Because
I think everybody did perfect in this movie. So
yeah, they all played their part just right. Even Paul Reiser.
Exactly.
Well, let me see. So if we were going to recast the movie, like do a remake of it, only so many years later, 10 years later or whatever.
Right.
I think that Fletcher would need to be someone who is really charismatic, but also intimidating. I think that Gary Oldman would do well. I think Keith David would do well. Even Clancy Brown, which at the time when you and I got this whole thing set up, the new season of Dexter hadn't started yet. And Clancy Brown was not, I don't think a lot of people think of him as a bad guy, even though he was the piece of shit prologue or
I was saying
correctional officer in Shawshank. Yeah. But I don't think people really forget that quite a bit. All they think of him is Mr. Krabs.
Right.
But so yeah, Clancy Brown would be really good. And I've been seeing him playing this douchebag in Dexter, because my girlfriend loves Dexter lately. And I think he would do good. Even Ron Perlman, maybe in like a bowler hat, like the hat that Bryan Cranston wears in Breaking Bad. But I think that ultimately the best pick would be Christian Bale. But that would actually be for Neiman.
Oh.
I want him to be Andrew Neiman. No, I'm just kidding. For Neiman, I think that my instinct would be that I wouldn't want to see. I want someone that I wouldn't mind see like getting slapped around, maybe like a Timothy Chalamet or Will Poulter. He's got a slappable face. Or Barry Keoghan. You know him? He's in Killing of a Sacred Deer. He was the creepy kid.
I haven't watched that movie yet. I've heard of it, but I haven't watched that one.
Have you seen The Green Knight?
Nope.
Okay, so he plays like a little mischievous kid that essentially robs the Green Knight in that. Okay. He's also he's a really specific character actor. Look him up when you get a chance. He's a British fella. But they really need to be likable more than anything. Not necessarily you don't want to see him beat up, but you don't mind. So I think the likability, he almost has to be to the point that you're surprised when he has the almost like sociopathic theories that come out, like the way he addresses his girlfriend, that whole conversation. You have to be like, okay, well, I could see that coming. So I think maybe Jacob Tremblay would do well. He's gonna be a little bit older soon, so I think maybe once he hits high school age, that might work. From Good Boys, Gaten Matarazzo, the kid from Dustin from Stranger Things.
Okay, yeah,
I think he'd do good. Or in a gender swap, Elsie Fisher from The Girl from 8th Grade.
I was just talking about that movie.
Oh, really?
Last night, yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would be really interesting to see an abusive male instructor with a female student, and if that would change the concept at all. But again, please don't ever remake this.
No, I think we're agreed there.
Josh, don't do it.
Luckily, I have no power. It's funny the amount of comments that I've gotten on these remake part of this.
Yeah.
Like I literally put it out on one of them. I forgot. And someone on Instagram was like saying, see, they're posting about it here too. I told you it's real. I was like, no. Hold on.
It's a hot insider scoop.
I have no power. You
have no power over here. Yeah, so I think those would be my specific thoughts that you forced me to think, which I never wanted to think.
Trust me, that's why I do it. Because every time people are like, well, what did you think? I was like, no. I don't think about this.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on this side of the table.
Yeah. You're just the provocateur.
There you go. So let's do that. One final pitch for someone who maybe isn't sold on watching this yet. Give that final pitch.
So I think everybody can understand the idea of being pushed to your limits for greatness. We do it every day for multiple reasons. You extend yourself beyond your comfort level for the ones that you love, the people that you care about, family and close friends. You do so for your work, in order to get yourself to a better level, make more money, provide for your family, all that stuff. We all do things out of our comfort zone. But this movie explores the idea of doing exactly that for eternal greatness. And essentially, like, you and I may not, or, you may not know who Charlie Parker is, or Buddy Rich, but, because you're not in the jazz world, but they are eternal greats in the jazz world, right? They're like, you've heard of Miles Davis. He's transcends all. Everybody knows Miles Davis, but essentially this is a character study in someone who wants that type of great eternal greatness, like forever will be recognized. And he specifically comments that he has no need for friends because friends have no purpose. And it's really hard to connect with that character, but Damien Chazelle has he forces you to connect with him. He's a very relatable and likable guy until he says something like that. Like, I don't have any friends and I have no need for friends. Why do I need friends? They're just going to take me off of my course or whatever. And it also explores that from the perspective of somebody who wants to nurture that out of you and how far is too far to be pushed. And I think everybody can relate to a teacher that's done that, or a parent, a mother or father who's done that. I know when I was young and I was in Little League baseball, I was afraid of the ball when I was really young. I was afraid I was going to get hit by the ball every time someone threw it at me, right? Just kind of this human reaction. So, and I was, to prevent that, to alleviate that, my father had this great way of immersion therapy where we put the catcher's gear on, full body suit, arm pads, face mask, leg guards, everything. So you're completely protected. And he would put me up against the fence and have me put my arms out like wide, like a T pose, and then throw balls at me and tell me not to catch them, just hit me in the chest and the face and stuff with all the guard on so you don't get hurt. And eventually it worked. And after a couple of days of that, you never are afraid of the ball again. And I appreciate that. Fletcher does that to an extreme level by 1,000. So, I think everybody can relate to that on some level, but there is an emotional component to the final solo scene. And there's one specific shot that is my favorite shot, and one of my favorite shots in all of cinema is when Neiman, and I won't spoil it. This movie's kind of hard to spoil, but I won't really get into the ending too much, but Neiman's doing his final solo and his father's already left the building, and he comes back when he hears his son playing, and he's standing at the back of the auditorium at the double doors from the entrance, from the lobby to the auditorium. And he's looking through those double doors at his son and seeing what he's capable of that he never thought he was capable of. And you see the look on his face of almost like dread and regret and fear and like concern and love all at the same time as he's just going wild on the set. And it's like, gives me goosebumps every time. It's so damn good. So, the other pitch for people who may be on the fence or it doesn't sound like up their alley, if you like La La Land, watch this. This is the prequel to this. This not a direct story wise, but Damien Chazelle is going to be considered one of the great filmmakers of our generation, and this is really early in his career. And you should pay attention to those because it's watching the arc of these filmmakers is a really cool thing.
All right, sounds good. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and the podcast?
You can follow us on Facebook, the podcast, just facebook.com/MCFC podcast. Send us an email if you want information about the show, or you can just hit the website up. It's mcfcpodcast.com. And we have on social media, we're podcast MCFC on Twitter. Instagram is Middle Class Film Class. Couldn't get all three of them the same. But yeah, look for me on Twitter. I'm at what is it? At the real Pete, I think, something like that. I don't even know my Instagram. I don't even know my Twitter handle. But look at Josh's page, and then you'll find me there.
There you go. And yes, I am on Twitter and Instagram at ynfmoviepod on both because I wanted to keep it easy. Available wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. And be sure to come back next week. I'll either be back with a different guest or be back with returning guest Chad and Chris, and we'll be doing a deep dive review because we're going back and forth this year. So till then, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everybody.